Hello, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us during this session, Improve Student Outcomes with Data. For this session, we have a really good panel, a strong panel of some district presenters representing different school districts in the Atlanta area metro district, or metro area, who will talk about ways that they are leveraging data and data science and data visualization, data analytics to really push the improvement in student outcomes within their systems. Each presenter will have an opportunity to introduce themselves when they present. So I won't go into detail. I'll just quickly say that we have Monique O'Brien, who is the Director of Research and Evaluation at Atlanta Public Schools, who will be followed by Robbie Carmichael, who is the Executive Director of Student Information Services at Cherokee County School District. And then we have two presenters from Forsyth County Schools, Tim Fleming, who is the Director of Technology Services, and Kurt Godwin, who is the Network Operations Coordinator. And my role is really just to introduce them, and I will be facilitating the questions and answers as we go through the session. We will ask that everyone please keep yourself on mute, please keep yourself off camera. If you have questions, you do not have to wait until the end to ask them, but throw them in the chat, and we will monitor the chat, synthesize those, and organize those such that at the end, we will allow questions for all of the presenters. So Monique, having said that, I will hand it directly over to you so we can jump right into the presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Monique O'Brien, and as Nicholas stated, I currently serve as the Director of Research and Evaluation in Atlanta Public Schools. Today, I'll be sharing with you how APS uses data to help improve student outcomes. Next slide. Just to give you a little background about Atlanta Public Schools, we are the 8th largest school district in the state of Georgia and average approximately 50 to 51,000 students each year. Our district is organized into 9 K-12 clusters with 58 traditional schools, 18 charter schools, 6 partner schools, 2 citywide single-gender academies, and 3 alternative programs. Next slide. Atlanta Public Schools serves students across the city of Atlanta. As you may or may not know, the city of Atlanta is one of the most unequal cities in the United States when it comes to income disparity, and APS reflects this inequity. According to the 2010 census data, the median household income of white students in APS was $167,087, while the median household income for Black students in Atlanta Public Schools was approximately $23,000. According to research from the Brookings Report, a child born in poverty in Atlanta has only a 4.5% chance to rise to the top quarter of earners. Roughly 75% of APS students live in low-income households. According to research from Stanford, white students are nearly 4.5 grade levels ahead of their Black peers within Atlanta Public Schools. We have a lot of work to do to help close the academic gaps of our students. Next slide. At APS, we've developed a roadmap to accomplish academic excellence for all students. We call this the APS 5. One of the key components of the APS 5 is data. At APS, we utilize data to drive all instructional decisions and ensure equitable outcomes for all students. We have 2 data websites to support these efforts. APS Insights is our public-facing data website, and APS Graphs is our internal data website available to all APS employees. Next slide. Our public-facing data website, APS Insights, can be accessed by going to www.apsinsights.org. On this site, we have a variety of data options available. We have school profiles, where you can view school data and district and state comparisons of school performance, climate, and demographics. Enrollment data, where you can find your zone school, view performance of nearby schools, and learn about enrollment options. Our Data Explorer includes interactive data visuals for self-guided analysis, and we have blog posts with data visuals and explanations on a variety of school data topics. Next slide. Some examples of the interactive dashboards that are available on APS Insights includes our 2021 graduation rates for the district and each high school by various subgroups. Next slide. We also have results from the Georgia Milestones assessment, which is our state assessment. Users can use filters to toggle between the various content level tests, student achievement levels, or subgroups. Additionally, data can be sorted by a variety of subgroups. We currently use publicly available data files from the Georgia Department of Education to develop many of our Tableau dashboards on APS Insights. As a result, users can see assessment results from Atlanta Public Schools and other school districts across the state of Georgia. Next slide. One of our most popular blogs is the relationship between school performance and poverty. At APS, we've developed the Challenge Index, which measures the percentage of students who are either directly certified for free lunch or English language learners. We believe that comparing schools with similar challenge indices is helpful for understanding school performance. A school that is above the trend line has higher test scores than other schools with similar poverty levels. But of course, this view isn't conclusive. Two schools with similar challenge indices might differ in other ways that is not captured by the challenge index. Filters can be used to select different grades, subjects, or performance metrics for our students, in our schools. Next slide. So you may be wondering, how does APS generate these interactive data visuals? Next slide. In Atlanta Public Schools, we use an AWS Amazon Web Service, hosted data warehouse, and Tableau server to support the interactive data visualizations you just saw. Many different AWS services were utilized in the Tableau deployment. To help us with this, we contracted Slalom Consulting to assist our team with the initial stand-up. Next slide. APS receives data from a variety of external data sources. Currently, we use Matillion, which is an ETL tool, to migrate all of our external data sources to Amazon Redshift, which is a cloud-based data warehouse service. We also upload data files to Amazon S3, also known as Amazon Simple Storage Service, which is a service offered by AWS that provides object storage through their web service interface. We are able to connect data stored in AWS to our Tableau server, where we store published data connections and workbooks created in Tableau Desktop. From this connection, our team of data strategists are able to use Tableau Desktop to create a variety of dashboards that feed data in through live and abstract data connections. Next slide. Last year, when the district was beginning to transition from 100% remote learning to in-person learning, our team was called to the table to help design a process to capture feedback and preferences from all families in the district, not just the most active voices. To help us, we developed and hosted a simple website on our LAMP server in our AWS instance so that families could easily select instructional models for their students. The underlying data updated nightly so that new enrollments were pulled in automatically. Actions and selections were captured and stored in MySQL with an ETL written to integrate with other district data sources. Next slide. Our team was able to take this data to develop an intent to return dashboard. As a result, district leaders had real-time knowledge of engagement patterns and could push in targeted updates to the engagement strategy as needed. Next slide. Additional tools we've created to inform our district and school teams is the student data profile. This dashboard allows all levels of the district to see a comprehensive view of student performance. That includes test scores from different systems, grades, attendance, and behavior. The data profile is formatted to fit on a printed page for student or parent conferences. Data is updated nightly, so it will always be current. This data view can help show how a student's achievement has changed over time and whether a student's achievement is consistent across measures, such as comparing milestone results to grades. Next slide. Through our partnership with Achieve Atlanta, we now have dashboards for all of our high school students. The Match and Fit tool allows our high school students to explore post-secondary options based on high school GPA and college entrance exam scores such as ACT or SAT. Next slide. Great. So now I'll turn it over to Robbie Carmichael at Cherokee County Schools.
Thank you very much, Monique. I appreciate the presentation that you have given us. We are much further behind both Atlanta Public Schools and Forsyth in our process here in Cherokee. We currently are building out our system, and we've been doing that for about a year. We use our Follett Aspen as our SIS, and that's the source for most of our data that we're presenting to our end users. We're using Microsoft SQL for our database storage. We do all of our work with Microsoft tools. We're totally Microsoft shop here. It does allow us to have direct access to our data services. So you can go into the next slide. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead on some of the slides. We do have direct access to our student data, and then we are able to generate reports as needed through Power BI. And we've really tried to address a lot of the common questions that we get for data access and combinations across different formats. So although Aspen is our primary data source, we've been able to integrate from systems like our transportation, school nutrition, our learning management system, Canvas. We pull data into one spot so that we can get to that. Next slide, please. So that's really where we've tried to address our gap. Our end users were struggling with so many data sources and not having the ability to pull those all together to get a full picture of what was going on with the students, with individual students and groups of students within their schools. So we've been able to address that through the use of the dashboards that we've created, and we can do that on our side. One of the things that we've struggled with is the limited both financial resources and personnel resources that have been dedicated to this project. So we've tried to come up with the simplest solution possible for us. Next slide, please. And for us, that has been using Microsoft's Power BI. As mentioned, we are totally a Microsoft shop. We did have a full licensing for all of our users of Power BI. So that was the most logical method for us to go when it came down to displaying the information. You can go ahead to the next one. Thank you. When our users log in, this is the base information that they come into. This is the primary dashboard. We've organized it using an app within Power BI on Microsoft Office 365. So this allowed us to kind of consolidate everything in one spot. Users come here, they can see information, which would include like real-time enrollment numbers. And then each one of the visuals there is actually a link to a more detailed dashboard. Next slide, please. One of the more common questions that we get is just simple things on demographics on students. And so we tried to make this as simple as possible for our end users. One of the things you'll notice with our layout on the left side of each one of our screens, we have developed a set of slicers or filters that can be used in each one of these pages. We've tried to go for a consistent look and feel across the board so that as users navigate from page to page, they don't have to relearn the system. And as they apply the filters, they're able to see in real time some of the information that they are looking for, and they can get some of that cross-referencing that they were unable to do directly in our SIS or in Canvas or any of the other systems that we had. Next slide, please. As I said, we've tried to simplify this as much as possible from the outset. So one of the things we've done is just display data in a way to kind of make our users feel more comfortable using data visualizations. For us, one of the other challenges, along with the constraints we have with our staff and finances, is getting time with our end users to train them. So we've really focused on keeping everything as simple as possible. One of the things we did here, just to kind of give them a quick visual, was a breakdown of place of birth. So we have a heat map there that's simply tied in and gives them a quick look at their students and where their students are from. Next slide, please. And then we've added some features where we can toggle back and forth between a US map and a world map just so that they can do that. Next slide. Just some simple information that really, again, is not as easy for them to access in our SIS as they would like. So we've kind of tried to put some of that on here. The next slide, please. We've really been focusing lately on our instructional programs and trying to build out dashboards specifically for each one of the programs. When we initially built this screen that you see on here, we built that in as a response to a lot of questions that we get. We'd often get questions from users saying, how many students are special education and gifted, or gifted and EL? And so by putting this together, we can quickly give them the numbers. They can put filters on to see a variety of information, and then they can actually drill down deeper into each one of these instructional programs. If you go to the next slide, please. And so each instructional program then has a breakdown where they can go in and see within that instructional program different base information on the students. You'll notice on this screen and on the next, you can go ahead to the next slide, that there's an under construction tag on here. One of the things we've done in our latest version, which is going to be rolling out soon, we've actually filled this information in the under construction. We met individually with each department so that we could kind of go and find more relevant information that would be good for information on students that met that criteria. And so one of the things that we're adding in on all these is some grade and assessment information so that the person that's looking at that could get through and see more detailed information. Next slide. Some of these slides are a little bit dated. We have made some adjustments. So as we look at this one, I'll mention one thing. You'll notice on here that there are not a lot of visuals, and the visuals take up a lot of real estate. One of the things that we have done is on that left side of the screen where you currently see the slicers and filters, we've actually incorporated a slide out panel that holds all that information, which opened up a great deal of space for us on the screen. And so that's something that we're rolling out to all of our new dashboards and the existing ones as well, so that we put as much information on one screen as possible and allow the users to do that. Next screen, please. This is our most popular of our dashboards, and the one that really, I think, when we look at improving student outcomes, this is the one that has had the biggest impact for our students and for our schools. This is a grade distribution chart, which we find challenging to present to users because our grades are stored in Canvas and our users are using Aspen as their student information system. So it was kind of a difficult challenge to correlate the two so that they could see patterns and things like that. So what we were able to do was to pull the information in and be able to display to them the breakdown, the grade distributions. On the donut up at the top, it's a drill through donut, so they could go into subject areas, then into specific courses, and then into specific student groups to see if there were any information that they needed to drill down further into. Two things that we've done and we're starting to incorporate into our dashboards. You can see their grayed out on this screen, but there's a student data button and a course distribution button. One of the challenges that we found with simply putting visuals out there with numbers on them was I've narrowed the list down to a group of students, 5% of our students, but I don't know who those students are. So we've enabled the end user to click on that button once they've selected one of the criteria on the screen and actually go to a screen where they can see the list of students and some basic information so that they can go further beyond just looking at a number on a screen, that they can really identify individuals that they need to look at. The course distribution button brings up a list of the grades by teacher, by course, so that if you have 10% of a students failing a specific subject, you can go in and see if that's in a specific class or with a specific teacher. So it's allowed our administrators to really be very much more proactive than they have been in the past, because they've got this information at their fingertips in pseudo real time. Next slide, please. And finally, just a real quick overview of how we've gone through this process. We've had a lot of discovery meetings with our different departments to try to really make this something that is beneficial to the educators in the building. Those of us that are developing it in-house are not educators by trade, so we are kind of doing our best guess in a lot of ways of what would be needed. So we've tried to incorporate that feedback as much as we possibly can. We've given sneak peeks to some of those end users, and again, I mentioned this throughout, but we've tried to keep things as simple as possible for our users because we are in a situation where we don't have the training capability that we would like. When we have done training, we've done very short sessions, and they've been very well. The response has been very good because we have kept things simple, and they're able to navigate very easily. One of the things that we have done, and I mentioned that we're showing student lists and things like that, we've done a direct tie into our student information system and the security that's contained therein and translated that over to our Power BI dashboards. Therefore, all the data that's being displayed to the end user in our dashboard is available to them in the SIS. So we're not extending this, the access to data. We're just simply giving them the same thing that they could see, but we're consolidating that in a way that really makes their lives easier, and I think makes it more beneficial to our staff and to our students. And again, this is kind of a working process for us. We have a lot of things that we're working on. I love what Monique shared with us with the individual student information. That's one of the things that's coming up for us as well. So we are never going to finish this project. This will always be a work in progress. So I'm really excited to see where it goes in the future. And I'll hand this over, I guess, to Tim. He's going to go next, but Forsyth's been a great resource for us as we've gone through this, and we appreciate all the help that they've been to us as well. So Tim, it's all yours.
Thank you, Robbie. Great presentation. So I want to give you a little bit of background on Forsyth County Schools. So we are now the 5th largest school district in Georgia. We serve over 53,000 students. We have over 6,500 staff. We're growing at a rapid rate of about 2,000 additional students every year. We have to make sure that we are serving our students properly. And even though we're a high performing district, graduating more than 94% a few years ago, and now over 96% of students. And while that's a great number, we needed to address those 4 to 6% of students who were not graduating. Go ahead and change to the next slide. So the screen you're going to see right here is what our counselors receive every Friday. It's a list that's determined by Ava, which is our academic virtual assistant, to be students who are at risk of not graduating. They may not always be seniors. We can go all the way back to the 7th grade to see students who are getting off track, and we can really look at ways to help them. But a lot of what we're going to show you in just a moment, we really had to have a way that we could get that information to the counselors. And what we found is when COVID hit, people didn't have time to go places and click through different screens. It was too much for them to do with the added workload of everything else they had. So we really thought, how do we get this to them? So this email comes to them on Friday. It gives a list of their students and only their students. So every teacher can only see their students, every counselor only their school, every principal only their school, and the district can see everyone. But their list of students, and from clicking on either the student's name or on the 360 report, next slide, you will get a screen that looks like this. The top left-hand corner, it's going to give you a little more information about the student. It'll tell you GPA, and it'll give you a graduation prediction score. We'll show you that in just a moment. But it really kind of allows you to dig just a little deeper into the student without getting into all the relevant information that you'll need, which is on the bottom part of the screen. Next slide. I want to actually zoom in on that bottom part of the screen because I think it's important that we kind of look at this, because this is really the backbone of how we're determining students who are off track for graduation. So you'll see for Forsyth County Schools, it takes 23 credits to graduate. But it's not just 23 any credits, it's specific credits. And so what this does is this allows us to see the students, how many credits they have taken in the past, how many credits they are currently taking. And then you'll see the red, green, and yellow is if they are failing a course, passing a course, or if they are at risk of failing a course. And just like Cherokee County Schools mentioned how they're a total Microsoft shop, we did all of this within Microsoft tools as well. And the reason for that was there are actually several reasons for that. One is we wanted to use a tool that had broad industry support, and we knew that Microsoft's Power BI had that support, and it made it easier when looking for a partner to help us build this. Additionally, we were already paying for a large contingent of these components that we already needed as part of the licensing structure that we already had with Microsoft. So both of those led us to go down the Microsoft path, and we think we found an excellent product to show this information and bring the data that's needed to the counselors.
So just to catch you up real quick. So Ava goes through several different pieces of data, and we'll try to show you more of those if time allows, but this is one of the main ones. It looks at what credits they've taken in the past, and are they the right credits? Number two, what credits they're currently taking, and then are they passing those credits? So let's say that I had a student who was passing everything, but the next day they didn't turn in, a huge assignment, their grade dropped to a 52. Well, Ava would automatically start recognizing if they're a senior and it's a required course and it's second semester, that they're not going to have time in their schedule to be able to make that course up. So that student will all of a sudden appear on the counselor's list, the teacher's list, and say, hey, this is something that's going on with this student that needs to be addressed, or else they won't graduate on time. Now, a lot of times it's just as simple as the student didn't turn it in, they got to go turn it in, something like that. But a lot of times it can be a much bigger problem where they may have missed credits, or they're at a point where they mathematically can't graduate with that class. We have to look at getting them in a remedial class.
This information is updated every night, and it pulls from our student information system, which is Infinite Campus. We also pull in data from other data sources, but Infinite Campus is the only one that we're analyzing at the moment.
Next slide. So I want to quickly show you another aspect of Ava. We haven't really gone into a lot of this, but this is the chatbot feature. Ava's actually a chatbot, and we wanted some way that the kids could interact with Ava. So in Microsoft Teams, we made a spot for Ava to live, and the students can start with a variety of, hey, what's up? How you doing? Stuff like that. Ava will start a conversation. Now, right now it's real limited. Ava, the chatbots, if you know much about them, they can do amazing things, but we had to start small. So what we did was we said, Ava, we really want you to direct them into one of two paths. One is, I want to see how I'm doing in school. And it's that academic page that we just showed you a minute ago. It shows you how many credits they've had, how many they've taken, if they're currently passing, things like that. So they can look at that themselves. Then number two, we wanted them to be able to start a conversation with their counselor. So Ava doesn't actually go in and find a schedule and schedule the student, but she does send an email to the counselor, and the counselor can then email the student back, and she basically just hooks those two up. Now there's a lot more. That's very, very basic on what Ava can do, but that's how we started, so we could kind of get an idea about, we wanted to make kids responsible and informed about the data so that they knew what they needed to do to graduate. Next slide.
And to go back to a point that Tim mentioned about the security levels, how we use, teachers can only see their students, administrators can only see their school, and district staff can see all people. This is tied into our human resources system. So depending on how a person is classified in our human resources system, we have some automated account actions that impose role level security in their access in Power BI. So a teacher will only see their class. And if they move to a new school, they'll see their new class. And we pull that rostering information from our student learning system.
So I told you Ava gets her information from a couple places. One I've already showed you. This is another one that's been really successful for us, and that is the student predictions. What we did to create this is we went and looked at 10 years worth of our student data. So we took 10 years of our data and we began to kind of group it together in a machine learning model that said, what are the same about students who graduate and what are the same about students who do not graduate? And we began to look and let the computer tell us what it saw. And then we added things that we knew to be true. Like, low GPAs usually mean that the student is not doing well in school. If you miss lots of courses and absences, that can hinder you. So we added some things in, but really what we found is the machine really found some things that were unique for us.
So a couple of items that are highlighted here are that, things that contributed towards the likelihood of graduation, or, how long that they've been a student with Forsyth County Schools and whether or not they've attended field trips. So one of the things we found in this first iteration of the dashboard is that we're learning the whats that contribute towards graduation or lack of graduation, but not the whys yet. So we're going to look into how those whys impact the things so that can better let us intervene where necessary earlier.
So the screen you're looking at, it basically puts kids into one of 5 categories. At the top, there's slicers. So I could look from a district level at a school. I could look at a grade level. I could say, show me all 12th graders across the district. I could slice it by just a variety of different things, even so far as to slice it by student. I could pick an individual student, see how they're doing. But in the top left-hand corner, you'll see there's 5 bars. And those are basically groups that we're putting kids in. And it's people who we have high confidence who will graduate and low confidence who will graduate. And by clicking on any one of those specific ones, it will give a drop down underneath that of all the kids in that group. So if I'm a counselor and I'm in charge of 12th graders, then I would want to pull up this screen, slice it by my school. Of course, they can only see their school if they're a counselor, but district people can see others. But look at my school. I would then want to slice it by 12th graders. And then I'd want to say from left to right, who does Ava say have a really slim chance of graduating? And by clicking on that, I have a list of students I can go work with. It also gives you on the kind of the middle, it gives you kind of a speedometer that shows you kind of on a scale of 1 to 5 where the student stands. And then we also forced Ava to make a prediction. Even though they have a low graduation chance, sometimes Ava still predicts they will graduate. So that's what the little head to the right of it is whether they're going to graduate or not graduate.
And these data points that show up in the list, such as the ones I mentioned about field trips and how long they've been a student, those weren't things that we came up with. That's what the data model found when we did this. Of course, because just as in conversation, Tim and I were like, well, people have poor grade point averages, people who have no, poor attendance, people have poor behavior. Of course, those aren't going to graduate. So we needed to find the smaller indicators that would help us hone in on the ones that needed assistance. So these were the ones that the machine learning picked up on.
So when we first did this screen, we actually sent it out to some teachers and principals to look at, and immediately we got feedback and they said, hey, something's not working with it. There's a student in here who's got a 4.0 GPA. So this isn't right. And at first we thought, yeah, it's not right. The 4.0 GPA, probably they're going to graduate, machine's just off. And we began to dig into that student. And what we found is that the student was actually an excellent student. I mean, 4.0, that I've never had that in my life. A great student. But what had happened is during their freshman year, we require half a credit in health and a half a credit in PE. They had taken the half of credit in health, but they did not get the one in PE. And because they were such a great student, it kind of got overlooked throughout the process, because who would imagine that this kid wasn't going to graduate, right? Everybody knows they're going to graduate. But what we actually found is in their senior year, closing in on the end of school, we found that the student was not going to graduate without that half credit. Now, luckily, we had a way that we could help the student satisfy the requirement. We were able to give them 3 years of marching band equaled the same as a PE credit. That was something we did to the state. So it worked out great, and we were able to get the kids graduating. But I give you that example because I think that's one of the great things about this. A lot of times schools are really good at finding those kids, those seniors who you say, that student, that Kurt guy, when he's not going to graduate, he doesn't show up to class. He's always in detention. I know he's not going to graduate. And yeah, you don't need help finding those. You can do that by yourself. But the kids who are on that verge, who are kind of, some days they're okay, some days they're not, or the kids who's an excellent student, but maybe didn't have the right credit that they needed, that's where Ava shines. It finds things that no one else will pick out, and it does it in real time or almost real time. Every night it's updated. I think Kurt said that a minute ago, but that's really important because if you don't have that, every new student, we get about 3,500 students per year that are new. Every one of those would not be on our list anywhere. So it's real important that it gets updated each night so we can catch the student. Plus, things change every day for seniors. They have a paper due, they don't turn it in, their grade drops. The next day they turn it in, but they only get 80% credit, their grade goes up. It's a constant maneuver that we're having to watch and make sure our students walk across the stage. We really believe one of the biggest indicators for future success is whether we get the students across the stage. For us, that means a lot. So we're looking, just since we've done this, and I'm not saying the dashboard's done all this, our great teachers and principals have done the work, but we've gone from a 94% to a 96.4% graduation rate. You might say, well, that's only 2%. We're 53,000 students. That's a lot. That's a big number. But also remember, that's been during COVID. When we got hit the hardest, when things were really the worst, we have increased our graduation score. So although it's not the 10 points, you'd like to see, or the 5 points, or, the big number that makes you feel like, yeah, we've done a great job. It is really amazing because in the worst times, we still had an increase for our students to get across the stage.
Exactly. Next slide, please.
I think, Nicholas, I'm going to end with this one. I think just for time's sake, I want to make sure we have time for questions. We'll end with this one. This is just an example to show you kind of the different pieces that the dashboard can do. Microsoft is amazing product. Power BI within itself has built-in things that really work well. So if you're thinking about a task like this, if you're saying, this is something I'd like to do, I'd recommend you do your research as we did, but also really look at the products that you may have already have bought. Like us, we already had a Microsoft, and all we had to do was increase our license to A5, and we got Power BI with that as part of the A5 license. So, Nicholas, we're going to turn it back over to you.
All right, and apologies for the back and forth on the slides. I'm trying to navigate through the slide deck and monitor the chat for questions at the same time on a laptop. So apologies to the presenters on that. We do have about 8 and change minutes left. So I want to give you all an opportunity to drop any questions in there. I will reiterate, Sarah, I know toward the beginning you had a question about the slide deck. I will make sure that Brian Cox and team receive this slide deck so that you all receive it. A quick reminder, I know it was already dropped in the chat, to make sure that you do complete the feedback form. And then Sarah has a question / comment, says, we don't talk enough about the role that FOLX, you're going to have to translate that one for me. Folks, yeah, I thought that's what it was. In data offices playing, getting students across the stage. Absolutely. So I'll start off. I don't think there are any questions yet. Again, I will encourage all the attendees, if you have questions, to drop those in there. One question I have for all the presenters, and I would imagine that our audience in here, excluding the presenters, some might be in an education background, but I'm guessing many are not. So when you answer this, don't just think about education context specific. My question is, as you begin doing this work, right, either you came into a district that already had a project in place and you kind of were integrated into that work, or maybe you were on the team that actually began the work from scratch. What were really some of the early challenges that you faced? Again, so don't answer specific to education, right? So think about, if I work at a nonprofit and I'm trying to really think through, how can we leverage data science to support our mission, right? Or if I'm in a different type of government sector, what were some of the big challenges that you all faced early on, or maybe even still face? And what are some of the successes that you would tell people to aspire to early on, right? Those quick wins, the low-hanging fruit to get buy-in. So I'll pause there and just ask if any of you have any ideas or any feedback there.
I'll go for that one. I'll start off with that one. So, Nicholas, one of the things that right at the beginning, we really hopped into this. We didn't do this as like we hired a bunch of people and said, okay, you're our new data team. Y'all go do some great work. We did this with our team that we had that have other jobs. We kind of just did this on the side. It was like, well, I think we can do it. Let's give it a shot. We had to hire some of this outside of us because we didn't have the skills to do all the work. But one of the things I feel like that right off the bat was a lesson learned is we went about this trying to create a dashboard, when I think we should have decided what needed to be on the dashboard before we created it. And truthfully, that hurt us for a little while because we were putting out this great stuff. And in my opinion, I thought it was awesome. I was like, man, this stuff's awesome. But it wasn't exactly what we needed to do. It wasn't what took us to the goal we wanted to get to. So looking back, I wish we would have met as a group, a whole group, kind of enlarged it. We did meet with some principals, but not enough, and more district staff, and say, what is it that really matters to Forsyth County? Now, we've developed over the last 2 years that graduation is where we wanted to put our time in. But I think if we'd have known that up front, we could have skipped some of the steps of kind of floundering here and floundering there. And what about this way and that way? So I think if I were doing this, no matter what I'm in, I would say get your stakeholders together and really figure out what's important to you. because there's data that's out there about everything. You could do it on a billion different things, but you got to figure out what matters and then attack that.
I'll jump in real quick. I think one of the things for us is that, I mentioned several times when I was presenting about the simplicity of what we've tried to do. It's really easy to get overwhelmed with the possibilities of what you can do with this type of data, because what Forsyth's got's amazing, what Atlanta's got's amazing, and we were just not there yet. And so we really had to build some foundational pieces of just simply getting all of our data where it was usable uh, before we really started a lot of that cross-referencing. And if it's easy that first meeting, you get really excited about the possibilities of being able to link, as Forsyth mentioned with field trips. I mean, being able to decide that that's a key element to graduation. That's exciting to find, but from day one, you're not going to know that. It takes you a long time to build up to that, and sometimes you get too focused on the end game and forget about those little steps that need to be taken along the way. So just taking it step by step and building a good foundation, I think, is a key element to it.
Yeah, and I can jump in. One of the things that I would even add is the power of documentation. When we went into this process, we just went in. And so we built a lot of dashboards. We built a lot of behind the scene data tables, and we did not stop to take the time to do documentation. And so that piece of it is key. And that's something that we've been trying to backpedal and go back to and try to document a lot of our processes, even doing like a data type of dictionary so that we can actually define what each of our column names and our tables kind of mean. So definitely would have been a great thing to have done while we were in the middle of it versus trying to backpedal and do it now from memory.
And I will say, hearing those three comments, all of it resonated with me as well. And I think, whether you're in the education sector or in a different sector, a lot of those challenges are similar, right? We're even though most of us on this call have some sort of education background, right? That we kind of came into the data geek world through the education field. You really are experiencing things that are fairly universal when you're doing data geek work, right? When you're building data products for your end users. And the one bit of advice I would have that to kind of add to my own question, and it's similar to something Kurt said from a slightly different perspective, which is always press pause to step back and say, what business value are we bringing through this work? Because I have seen so many times that we data geeks get so caught up in, look at this amazing thing we're doing, and we deliver on this awesome thing that actually isn't bringing real business value. And so we have, if you will, this Lamborghini in the parking lot that nobody wants to drive, right? It might be pretty to look at, but it's just not functional, brings no real utility to our stakeholders. All right, so we've got a few minutes left. We don't want to go over, but we'll do a quick round robin. If you were doing all of this from scratch, what is the one thing, and again, don't be specific to your technology or specific to your district, but what is the one thing, if you had a magic wand and you could take a completely different approach to this work, what would be that one thing at the top of your wish list that you wish, if I really was able to meet the totality of the needs that my stakeholders have, what is the one thing that I would wish for to help me get there? So if everybody can answer that in like 10 to 15 seconds. And Kurt, if you and team want to go first.
Yep.
Okay,
go ahead.
sure.
So I think for us, one of the big keys is, like I said, we did this on the side and we just didn't have the skills to do everything we need to do. So for us, the big part of this was working with 3Cloud, a group that we do business with, to help fill in the gaps. We actually paid to have some of our guys trained as well. So learning the things we don't know, the magic wand is you've got to find some way to do that. So whether you get your people trained or you hire an outside group, you're going to have to do that because you just won't have all the skills you need to do everything.
And I would echo what's already been said about making sure you talk to all stakeholders first, because Tim and I are not the normal data people. We're not the normal data geeks. We're not, T&L. We're the network guys. We're the people who run tech services department. So we kind of ran this on our own, but really talking to the stakeholders first is that you can't go wrong by doing that.
Great.
Yeah, no,
Go
I
ahead,
echo
Nikki.
those same things. No, I was going to say I echo those same things.
Okay. Robbie, any last thoughts?
I agree with everything that was just said. I would also say just making sure that you keep the momentum going. That's a key element to it. Don't become stagnant and think that you've solved all the world's problems with it. It's always something else you can do.
Perfect. All right, we are right at 4:00 on my clock, so I think we will go ahead and stop there. If any of you do have any follow-up questions, you can feel free to filter those to us through the organizers of the conference, and we'll make sure that we get back in touch with everyone. And again, we will make sure that Brian Cox and that team have access to the PowerPoint, so you will have that. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.